Hello everyone, it's Katrina from the Alluring Bead Boutique, and today I am working on a post to show you guys how to do this beautiful little earring right here. This is one of my pins I saved on Pinterest in a board that I call Pins to Try for my blog. So being as though we're all stuck at home, we're all bored, we're all looking for something to keep our minds off of things and to stay busy, I thought I would head over there today and start working on some of these pin try posts. So here is the first one we're going to do, and it is a brick stitch on a bead project. One of the main differences of this project is that our main bead is going to be a little pear-shaped teardrop bead. So to get started for row 1, the first thing you'll need to do is put your thread bridges onto your bead. And if you don't know how to do brick stitch on a bead, you can head over to the corresponding post on the link here and take a look at how to get started with that. But you'll want 2 thread bridges on each side of the center hole of the bead. So I've already done that, and I'm ready to begin my row 1. So if you'll remember, on brick stitch on a bead, or pretty much any form of brick stitch, you always have to pick up 2 for your first stitch. So I'm going to pick up my 2 beads, and I'll be working on the left side first, just simply because I'm left-handed. If you have trouble with your tension, you can put a stop bead on your tail thread. You might want to leave yourself about 4 to 4 inches of tail thread. All right, so we're going to pick up our 2 beads. We're going to come under both of those thread bridges, just like we normally do on brick stitch. And when we're on a bead or a frame, we're going to go under a thread bridge or pass through a frame. So we're going to come back up through the second bead we added, which will be going the one closest towards the downside here. I'm going to go ahead and straighten up my first bead as we work these rounds. So I'm going to pass down through that first bead one more time and come right back up through my second bead again. Now, normally I would say we would position these beads so that the first bead sits close to the top of this hole. But in today's project, we're going to be putting one of these pretty little silver rice beads here at the top like this. So you want to check the positioning of your first 2 seed beads to make sure that they're sitting in a good place to where there won't be a big gap between beads 1 and this little bead that we're going to add last. So that looks good. Then we're just going to add the remaining beads, 1 bead at a time, and work our way all the way around this bead. Now, for this to work out the way that it did on my first earring, I'm using these 11/0 silver line sapphire seed beads, and I'm going to fit 17 of those beads in here, and I'm going to leave that space once again at the top open. That's going to be for my 18th bead. So now we're just going to go ahead and go 1 bead at a time, pass under the thread bridges, and position the bead, and we're going to step up into that new bead. And as we pull, we're going to pull straight out like this, and that'll help bring that bead right beside the one that was already on the base row. So I've got my first 7 beads brick stitched on. And if you're watching this on YouTube, if you are a little bit unsure of what you're doing, I have step-by-step pictures that correspond to this blog post over there on the alluringbeadboutique.com. So I'm going to add my 8th bead, and I'm going to add it on the same side of the center hole that I'm working on now. And I'm going to go ahead and do my step up. And then my next bead, I'm going to cross over to the other side. Let me get this tail thread back around to this side now. So just pick up your bead and pass it under the 2 thread bridges on the opposite side of your little teardrop bead. And my needle's a little dull today, but I'm just going to go ahead and use it. And then just step up through that bead just like normal. Position it beside the previous bead, and then add the remaining beads along this other side of your pear-shaped bead here on the base. And just like we've talked about before, as you work, you want to make sure that your beads line up in a single file along the plane follows our thread bridges around, and that there are no huge noticeable gaps between each one of these seed beads. So just take your time, keep working till you have till you get about to your 15th or 16th bead, and I will meet you guys back and we'll take a look at adding the last bead before we add this cute little rice bead right here. So I've worked my way around, and if you look closely, you can see that it's a little bit iffy whether or not I want to stick that last bead in there, but since I did it on my first component, I'm going to do it here too. I'm going to add that 17th bead here on the right-hand side of my base bead, and then I'm going to step up just like a normal brick stitch on a bead, and you can see that that looks a lot better. So we've got a little bit of we've got just enough space to get our little rice bead in there, and the beads on either side of that are going to look balanced here at the top like that. All right, so we'll just go ahead and pick up our little rice bead onto our needle. We are going to pass our needle under the thread bridge on the other side of the center hole. So I'm trying not to stab myself here as I pass under that thread bridge right there. I've got my bead on the needle, and there I am passing under the thread bridge on the opposite side. I'm going to pull that into position, and I'm going to pass back up through that bead just like a regular brick stitch. Now pull that up so that it stands up straight and tall like this. If I have to, I can wiggle the bead a little bit to make sure that it looks nice and straight, but we're going to use this pin here in a minute to hold that bead into position once we stitch it to the other side here. So now we're coming out of the top of that bead. What we need to do is just close the beadwork. So we are going to pass down from top to bottom through the very first bead of our row. And we've done this several times in every project that we've worked on with Brick Stitch. Then we're going to come back up through that silver bead one more time from the bottom to the top, just like that. And we're going to pull our threads. And that helps that bead to stand up straight and tall. And we want to just double check to make sure that the two thread bridges on both sides look pretty much the same, because we will be brick stitching beads onto those thread bridges to cover them up. So now before we move on, we're going to take our pin. We are going to stick it right down through. We're going to come through the rice bead, the teardrop bead, and the seed bead at the bottom, just like that. But now we need to get into position to do our second row. And I'm not going to start by brick stitching down this first exposed thread. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start my next row down here out of this bead. So I am going to take the needle and come right back down through that first bead one more time, from the top through to the bottom. I'm going to pull the thread. Then I am going to pass my needle under the thread bridges along the base bead there and come around the other side. I'm going to pull that through. Then I'm going to come right back up through that first seed bead one more time. And as I go through, I'm going to make sure that my thread bridges are positioned on the back side of that needle. Just like you can see them there. The needle is coming out in front of those thread bridges. They're on top of that little seed bead. And now I can begin my second row right here from this 11-0 seed bead.